If you've reached 60 or are approaching your later years, there's something important I want to share with you. Aging can be the most peaceful chapter of your life, but it can also become a burden if you don't learn how to truly live for yourself. I'm not saying this from books or distant teachings, but from my own experiences, from what I've witnessed and deeply understood over the years. We've spent our entire lives caring for our children, our families, and our work. But at some point, we realize that no one can live our lives for us, and no one is responsible for our happiness except ourselves. I'm not sharing this to lecture anyone. I simply hope you can avoid the mistakes that many older people make, the ones that leave them living in regret, loneliness, or even feeling like they no longer have purpose. These years ahead can be the best of your life if you know how to live them well. Listen to these lessons, not just to live longer, but to live with happiness and peace. If you find my words meaningful, don't forget to like, share this video, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more valuable lessons to come. 1. Don't let your children know all your savings. I have witnessed many parents who love their children unconditionally, willing to give everything they have to support them in times of need, without keeping anything for themselves. They believe it's the right thing to do, their duty as parents. But when old age arrives and their health declines, they come to a painful realization. They have put themselves in a position of financial insecurity, dependent on their children, and sometimes even becoming a burden. Once your children know exactly how much money you have, whether consciously or not, they may begin to see it as a resource they can rely on. At first, it might just be small requests for help, but over time it can lead to dependency, even family conflicts when money becomes the center of disputes. I've seen siblings turn against each other, growing distant because of arguments over their parents' assets. I once knew a woman who worked tirelessly all her life, saving every penny to secure her future in old age. But out of love, she gave everything she had to help her son buy a house. At first, he was deeply grateful, but when she later faced financial struggles and needed his support, all she received was cold indifference. Worse, her daughter-in-law resented her presence in their home, seeing her as an inconvenience rather than the mother who had sacrificed everything for them. Your money is yours. It's the result of a lifetime of hard work. Don't be so naive as to give it all away without keeping something for yourself. Think about your later years, when your health is not as strong, when medical expenses may rise. Do you want to be at someone else's mercy? Keeping a portion of your wealth for yourself is not selfish. It's about protecting your independence, your dignity, and your peace of mind. 2. Don't argue with your spouse when you get old. After turning 60, you may come to an important realization. The one person who will always be by your side is not your children, but your spouse. No matter how much your children love you, they have their own families, careers, and increasingly busy lives. But your partner, the person who has walked with you through all of life's ups and downs, is still there, the one who knows you best, who has witnessed your changes, and who will be with you until the very end. Yet many elderly couples spend their final years arguing and blaming each other. Small disagreements and petty conflicts become sources of frustration, turning what should be a peaceful time into constant tension. I have seen many couples who were inseparable in their youth, yet in their later years, they argue over the smallest things. And when one of them passes away, the other is left with regret, realizing they wasted too much time on meaningless disputes. Have you ever thought about what it would feel like to wake up one day and find that your partner is no longer there? The years of old age are not as long as those of youth, so why let trivial frustrations drive you apart? Learn to be patient, to forgive, and to cherish each moment together, because in the end, the most precious thing is not proving who was right or wrong, but having someone to share life with, to walk hand in hand until the very last step of the journey. 3. Don't spend all your money raising your grandchildren. I know many grandparents who dedicate all their energy, even their savings, to taking care of their grandchildren. They pick them up from school, prepare their meals, and look after them from morning till night, as if they were their own. Some even contribute financially, paying for tuition, buying clothes, and covering expenses just to ease the burden on their children. They do all of this out of unconditional love. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, Who will take care of you when you are exhausted? Who will be there for you when you grow old and frail? Your grandchildren are your children's responsibility, not yours. Raising and educating them is the duty of their parents, not the grandparents. Of course, you can help when you're able, but don't let it become an obligation. I have seen many elderly people neglect their own health, sacrifice their own happiness, and give up their golden years because they are too consumed with caring for their grandchildren. They give everything, but when they are too tired or too weak, no one can take their place. Time is not unlimited in old age. Don't let your final years revolve solely around babysitting. Take time for yourself. Enjoy life. Prioritize your health. Do the things that bring you joy. You have spent your entire life taking care of your children. Now it's time to live for yourself. 4. Don't rush to remarry when widowed. After losing a lifelong partner, many people rush into finding someone new, believing that having a companion will ease the loneliness of old age. But I have seen countless cases of late-life remarriages that, instead of bringing happiness, led to disappointment and conflict. When we are young, adapting to someone else is easier. But as we grow older, we become set in our ways. Our routines, habits, and lifestyles are already established, making it harder to adjust to a new partner. Differences in financial priorities, relationships with grown children, or even simple daily habits can turn what was meant to be a source of comfort into a source of stress. Many enter a second marriage, hoping for care and companionship in their later years, only to find themselves facing challenges and emotional struggles they never anticipated. If you find someone truly compatible, that is a wonderful thing. But if not, living alone is still better than living in a relationship filled with tension and disappointment. Focus on enjoying life on your own terms, prioritizing your health, expanding your social circle, and finding joy in the simple things. Happiness doesn't have to come from marriage. It can come from the freedom to live as you choose, embracing a peaceful and fulfilling life without dependence on anyone else. 5. Keep your home. I have seen many elderly people hastily sell their homes to move in with their children, believing it would be more convenient, less lonely, and provide them with care in old age. But many of them later regret it. When you live in your own home, you can do things your way, organize your life as you wish. But when you move into your children's house, you have to adapt to their routines, their rules, and their way of living. The difference in lifestyles between generations can lead to small but persistent conflicts, making you feel like a guest in what was supposed to be your home. A house is more than just a place to live. It holds your memories, your sense of security, and your personal space. When you still have your own home, you have freedom, the ability to make decisions for yourself. I once knew an elderly woman who sold her house to live with her children, only to realize she no longer had a space of her own or the freedom to do as she pleased. Though her children never made her feel unwelcome, she couldn't shake the feeling of being a burden. In the end, she regretted her decision, but could not return to the independent life she once had. So if you can, hold on to your home. No matter how loving your children are or how convincing their words may be, think carefully before making such a decision. As long as you have your home, you have a place to return to. As long as you have your home, you have control over your own life. 6. Don't depend entirely on your children. You might think that when you grow old, your children will be there to take care of you, accompany you to doctor's appointments, and ensure you eat well and rest properly. But the reality is often different. Children have their own families, careers, and responsibilities, things we may not fully grasp. No matter how much they love us, they still have to prioritize their own lives. If you rely entirely on your children without taking care of yourself, you may end up feeling disappointed when they cannot meet all your expectations. I once knew a woman named Margaret. She had spent her whole life working hard to raise her children, believing that when she got older, they would take care of her in return. But when she fell ill, her son was overwhelmed with work, and her daughter-in-law was busy raising young children. They couldn't always be there the way she had hoped. Only then did she realize that she had no financial security of her own, no independent life, and that realization made her feel helpless and alone. Don't let yourself fall into that situation. Plan financially for your later years. Take care of your health, and most importantly, find your own sources of happiness. Learn something new, join a club, make friends with people your age. These things will help you live a fulfilling life without depending entirely on your children. Your old age belongs to you, and you have the right to enjoy it on your own terms, free from reliance on anyone else. 7. Do not stay at your children's house for more than 3 days. There is a saying I always remember: tea left to cool is hard to drink, and a guest who stays too long becomes unwelcome. When visiting our children, it's natural to want to stay a little longer, to enjoy the warmth of family. But we must also remember that overstaying can unintentionally strain relationships. I once had a friend, Linda, who moved in with her daughter for a while after her husband passed away. At first, everything was warm and comforting, but over time, she noticed subtle changes. Her daughter spoke less, and her son-in-law seemed more distant. There were no arguments, no harsh words, but Linda sensed that she had stayed longer than she should have. Eventually, she made the decision to return to her own home. Not long after, her daughter started calling her more often, inviting her over and checking in on her regularly. The lesson I took from this is simple: keep just enough distance to always be welcomed. Visiting our children and grandchildren brings joy, but staying too long can, over time, make that joy fade. 8. Don't expect too much from your children. Many parents dedicate their entire lives to sacrificing for their children, expecting that in old age, their children will care for them and show gratitude in the way they had envisioned. But the reality is that children have their own lives, their own families, careers, and responsibilities. They cannot always be there for their parents in the way we might hope. I once knew an elderly woman named Margaret, who often felt neglected because her son was always busy and rarely visited. She felt hurt, believing that he no longer cared for her. But one day, she came to understand that he was working hard to provide for his own family. Instead of dwelling on disappointment, she decided to shift her mindset. She began finding joy in her own life, joining senior clubs, and engaging in activities that made her happy. Over time, she realized that her son still loved her, just in a different way than she had expected. Love cannot be measured by the number of visits or the things our children do for us. If we hold on too tightly, relationships can become strained. Sometimes, letting go a little allows love to flow more naturally. 9. Don't let worry keep you up at night. I used to have sleepless nights, lying awake with worries I couldn't even name. As we grow older, we have more time to think, and sometimes those thoughts become a burden that keeps us from sleeping. It could be concerns about health, children, or the future, things we have no real control over. I once knew a woman named Helen who constantly worried about her daughter. She feared her daughter wouldn't have enough money to raise her children, feared her family would struggle, feared so many things. Every night she lay awake, lost in anxious thoughts, until her health started to decline from chronic lack of sleep. One day, her doctor told her, "No matter how much you worry tonight, it won't change anything by morning. But if you get enough rest, you'll have the strength to help your daughter when she really needs you." That one sentence changed her perspective. She realized that worrying didn't solve problems. It only drained her energy. From then on, she practiced letting go of negative thoughts before bed. And gradually, her sleep improved. Remember, tomorrow will take care of itself. Let your mind rest, because your health is more important than anything else. 10. Don't control your children's lives too much. I used to think that with all my life experience, I could help my children avoid mistakes. But then I realized that no matter how much I worry or offer advice, they still have their own lives to live. And sometimes, too much parental involvement becomes pressure rather than support. Alana, a friend of mine, once struggled with frustration over her son's decision about buying a house. She believed he should choose a smaller, more affordable home, but he wanted to take out a bigger loan to buy a larger one. She argued, she objected, but in the end, he followed his own path. And to her surprise, that house brought his family great happiness. It was then that Alana understood. Children need to experience and learn from their own choices. The less we try to control, the lighter our hearts become. Let your children build their own lives, and if they need you, they will come to you for guidance. When we learn to let go, we also find peace within ourselves. 11th, don't overwork yourself. I used to believe that I had to keep myself busy, working tirelessly, thinking that only by doing so could I be useful to my children and grandchildren, and still feel valuable. But as age caught up with me, I realized that my body was no longer the same. The back pain, the sleepless nights from exhaustion, the doctor visits for rising blood pressure, all made me understand one important truth. Health is more important than anything else. My friend Walter worked endlessly even after retiring. He took care of his grandchildren, managed household chores, and even took on a part-time job to support his family financially. But when his health began to decline, he finally understood that no one could take his place when illness struck. At that moment, what his children and grandchildren truly needed was not more financial help or constant assistance, but a father and grandfather who was healthy enough to enjoy life with them. So, don't overwork yourself. Take time to rest, to relax, and to cherish the years you have left with your loved ones. You have done enough. Now it's time to live for yourself. 12. Don't be so frugal that you forget to enjoy life. I used to be someone who was always cautious with spending, constantly thinking that I needed to save for the future. I denied myself good meals, dream vacations, and things I truly loved, all because I was worried about what lay ahead. But then, after witnessing a dear friend pass away suddenly without ever getting the chance to truly enjoy life, I realized that time waits for no one. My friend Helen spent her entire life living frugally, saving every penny with the hope of leaving behind a large sum for her children and grandchildren. But when her health declined, she no longer had the strength to travel, nor the teeth to enjoy the food she had once longed for. And when she passed away, the money she had saved so carefully could not go with her. Money can always be earned again, but time cannot. Enjoy life while you still can. Treat yourself to the joys you deserve. An exquisite meal, a long-awaited trip, a small gift just for you. These things will always be worth more than sitting in regret over what was never done. 13. Health is the greatest asset. I used to believe that taking care of my family and saving money were the most important things in life. But then I realized that without good health, none of it truly matters. You can have a beautiful home, financial security, and loving children and grandchildren, but if you spend your days taking medication and lying in a hospital bed, can you still find joy in life? I had a friend named Robert. He worked hard his entire life, saving every penny to provide for his family. But he neglected one crucial thing: taking care of himself. By the time he turned 75, his health had deteriorated. He could no longer move around easily, eating became a struggle, and his final years were spent confined to hospital rooms. He once told me, "I wish I had taken time to walk every day, eaten healthier, and slowed down instead of just focusing on making money." The lesson is clear. Health is the most valuable asset you have. If you want to see your children happy, if you want to truly enjoy your later years, take care of yourself now. Walk more, eat well, get regular checkups. This is the greatest gift you can give yourself and the people who love you. Old age is not the final chapter of life but a new beginning, a time when we can live more lightly and fully if we learn to let go of what no longer serves us. These later years should be a time for enjoyment, for self-love, rather than for endless worries or trying to control things beyond our reach. Remember, you don't owe your entire life to anyone. Your children have their own lives, money is meant to be used, and health is your most valuable asset. When you learn to appreciate the present and embrace life with a peaceful heart, everything becomes more meaningful. If you found these insights helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so I can continue bringing you valuable stories. And don't forget to leave a comment. I would love to hear your thoughts.